Hello, my name is Jack Ducard. Welcome to Sentinel Circle. I'm happy to have you here today. If you like this video and others that I've done, please like and subscribe. If you feel these videos help others, please share the video. I appreciate that. And if you have any comments, I read them all, good or bad. Please give me your comment. Thank you for being here today. I appreciate it. Okay, so I got an article here. Well, I wouldn't say an article, more a topic. So there is a phenomena that's happening. It's estrangement between adult children and parents. And disclaimer, I don't speak to my mother. I haven't spoken to her in over 10 years. And the reason that I haven't spoken to her is twofold. One is she tried to have me criminally charged right after my situation with my ex and her current husband. When the criminal charges, basically she was told by the department that it was a civil matter. So after that, she took me to civil court and she lost. I don't care so much about the civil court aspect. It was more the fact that she was trying to put me in jail after I had just gone through one of the more traumatic experiences of my life. This is why I don't talk to her. And she has since tried to make contact with me many times. And I've told her multiple times that it's not going to happen. And it hurts. It hurts me deeply. I would like to be able to have a relationship with my mother. And the one thing I've noticed in parental estrangement communities is a lot of these people would love to have relationships with their parents. But the problem is the parents don't quite understand why it's happening. Obviously, I am fully about if you have a toxic influence in your life, get rid of it. Okay? Life is too short to deal with toxicity. And that's what I did with my mother, is I can't deal with it. You know, even as a kid, my parents have been divorced since I was 6. And even as a kid, you know, I was forced to talk to my mother when I was with my father. And I always idolized my dad growing up. And to a point, I idolized my mother, but then I started to see who she was as a person as I got older. And I think that's kind of what really kind of put her in a bad spot was I lived with my father as I was older and saw my mother for who she was, whereas my father, I didn't live with him during my younger years. It was only recently that I kind of saw what my father was about. I will say that my father has taken some of my criticisms to heart. And I don't want to say he's changed, but at the same time, as he's gotten older, he's gotten more difficult to listen to and to talk to. And I don't talk to him as much either. Growing up, I was told by a couple people that if I wanted a relationship with my father, I had to adapt to my father. And I don't deal with that. So we're going to talk about this here. It's called Down the Rabbit Hole, the World of Estranged Parents Forms. Now, the reason why I'm bringing this topic up is I noticed that a lot of men out there do not have relationships with their parents, specifically their mothers. And it's usually in single-parent households where this happens. So a lot of men that I know are raised by their mothers. You know, parents get divorced, raised by mothers. Father's not in the picture for whatever reason. And it's very rare that the father wants to be in the picture, even at a limited capacity. And because of that, especially when it comes to boys, the mother tends to take out aggression onto the boys because let's be honest, she's frustrated that she got stuck with, a child with a man that obviously didn't want to deal with it and left, or there were other issues and there's resentment there. And the boys often remind their mothers of the men that abandoned them. And that's not fair. But that's just the reality. Reality is not fair, ladies and gentlemen. It's not. But that's reality. So, we're going to start here. And I will talk about my experiences with my parents. This is going to be a little difficult, but we're going to try and fit it with that and stories that I've heard. So it starts off with the missing reasons. Members of estranged parents' forums often say their children never gave them any reason for the estrangement, then turn around and reveal that their children did tell them why. But the reasons their children give, the infamous missing reasons, are missing. And these are posts from a forum. It's a support group for estranged or parents of children who cut them off. So we'll read these anecdotes and analyze them. My son's constantly refusing to reply to my emails and lets my calls go to voicemail or barely speak if they do answer. They accuse me of being a terrible person but won't elaborate about exactly what I've done. Well, sometimes they do, but it doesn't make sense, at least to me. For example, it's hard to be part of the birth of my grandchild if I didn't know that I was going to have one. All this started because of a personal email they felt entitled to read on my computer. So, what this post doesn't explain is what was in that email. If you notice already, and this is kind of the issue with the parents, is their reasons are always vague. They just say, this started because of a personal email they felt entitled to read on my computer. Well, what was in the email? I agree. Don't read other people's emails. That's just like, none of your business. But what was in the email? What was said in the email? And it's obvious that this person doesn't want to deal with you, yet you continue to try. The one thing that a lot of people tend to do is they keep trying to force a relationship. And I will admit, I am guilty of it too. Everybody is. Because you don't want to lose that person. And there's a point where you got to say, no, the right thing is to back up and let this person have their space. Okay, because if you don't, it just makes the problem worse. And that was the issue with my mother, is she would not let me have my space. And in fact, one email said that it was an email that she sent a couple of years after, where she said, "You had enough space. Now it's time for us to get back together." That was literally the starting line of that email. And I'm paraphrasing. I don't want to drag her into this, but. To me, it was very entitled and rude, and I've noticed that other parents are like that as well. They think that they're entitled to their children, but they're not. Children have agency just like anybody else has agency. So, the explanation underneath says, what were the other reasons the son gave? Not knowing about the birth of her grandchild can't be the only one. What was in the email that caused both her sons to cut her off? We're supposed to be distracted by the hinkiness of the son reading the email and never noticing that the woman, Elizabeth Vagnede, God, I can't pronounce that. I'll just call her Elizabeth. Just told us that she knows exactly why her son cut her off. Pay no attention to the missing explanation behind the curtain. That's my point exactly. You just straight up aren't told exactly what it was in that email. So the next story. Next story was, I was abandoned by my daughter 6 years ago this June. I received a text message that says, the keys are under the mat. I have moved out. Don't come looking for me. I never want to see you again. You have ruined my life. I got home and found my husband standing in her empty room. She had a prepared speech that she emailed to me. She did not even say mom or dad anywhere in it. It was blank or my husband's first name. She stopped communicating with me about 1 year after, but each time I've asked why, I got the prepared speech or some slung together 4-letter word that I didn't appreciate. All my husband said was, she's 18, I was expecting this. I wasn't. What was the prepared speech? Why did the father expect her to move out at 18? The mother has 2 different sources of explanations at her fingertips, and she turns to neither. Nor does she repeat so much as a scrap of her daughter's allegations. Again, this is true. You tell them the reasons until you're blue in the face. And it's like talking to a brick wall. You know, I told my mother numerous times that trying to get me thrown into jail again was the reason. I'm not going to tolerate that. And her response is, well, why don't you ever tell me what's wrong? Blah, 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 blah. You know, the fact that this person, again, does not even post excerpts from the prepared speech instantly tells me that they're trying to hide something. You know, and that's really what it boils down to. And the fact that the husband instantly expected it at 18... He even knows, but he won't say anything. He won't say a damn word about it. Next anecdote. Sometimes when I've tried all... Jesus Christ. Okay, let's try this again. There's no punctuation here, so it's kind of hard. Sometimes when I've tried, all I've had back is pages and pages of abuse. It kills me and my husband when we have to read what a despicable person I am, how I'm evil and twisted and negative, and 1,000 other things too. Now, I'm going to pause right here. I would like to point out, why is it that these 3 posts are all women? Did anybody else know this? The first 3 posts are all women posting it. All right, let's continue. I sent an email to the middle son asking what we have ever done after all these years. No one has ever spelt it out to us. The reply last night was unbelievable. The things he said were cruel, vindictive, and completely untrue. He remembers things in a totally distorted way, and he believes 100% that this stuff is true, no matter how much we try to tell him he is wrong. So, right there, this is another thing that I noticed about estranged parents. You tell them exactly what happened. And their reaction is, oh, that's completely untrue. It's distorted thinking. That's not 100% what it is. They never, ever, ever try to see it from the children's perspective. Or, you know, like my mother could never see it from my perspective. You know, my mother's side of the family firmly believe that you can sue each other all day long and everything's going to be fine. I was not ever of the belief you could do that. Once you sue someone, that's like, that's the line. You don't ever do that. And I've seen it too. Like I've seen how messed up that site is. But let us continue. What was in the pages and pages that her sons wrote her? Why did it count as abuse and not as an explanation? I fully agree here. Why is it abuse? Why not take it as, hey, you asked the question, this is the answer? Were her sons really able to fill multiple pages with nothing but, "Dear Mom, you're despicable, vile, twisted, and negative. I hate you. I really, really hate you because you're vile and twisted and negative. You're a bad person and you should feel bad. I feel bad because you're so bad"? Or was there anything solid in there, anything at all, to explain why they thought their mother was despicable? Well, I can already tell you that, at least in the emails that I sent my mother, I told her the reasons, and then I told her, no, I'm not doing this anymore. Bye. And then I blocked her. And this is what has happened here. I mean, these parents, they want to get rid of their children when they hit 18, and then they're shocked when the kids block them. Like, what were you expecting at this point? But I think that this kind of situation has caused other unintended consequences with Gen Z and Gen Alpha, because now millennials are parents, and millennials kind of started this whole trend. Anyways, we're going to continue on here. In the same vein, members who confront their estranged children report that their children scream at them or use such foul language that I was shocked, but they don't repeat anything their children say. The mother who wrote a letter to my estranged daughter describes her daughter's voice as a small, frightened whisper, which thought I knew it was to be in your voice. It didn't seem like you at all, but doesn't say what her daughter whispered. The letter is marked by the complete absence of the daughter's words, even as reported speech. Again, that's the one thing I notice about these estrangement posts, is there's no reason, there's no explanation, nothing. It's always noise, and that's the best way to describe it. Is the children produce noise, and the adults have no idea what that noise means, and honestly, they don't care. When members do say what the allegations were, they paraphrase heavily, choosing the most trivial offenses and trimming away all context. Elizabeth said her son accused her of not being part of his child's birth, even though he hadn't told her he was having a child. The accusation is stripped of all seriousness because it's so bizarre, an impression created by the total lack of context. Another estranged mother, the woman quoted above, whose son sent her page and pages of abuse, said, "Last night he scraped the bottom of the barrel. When I was on holiday with him and his second wife and his kids, not hers, 3 years ago, I was there as a babysitter to do them a favor, although I had to pay for a 2-week car rental. Apparently I had called, quote, or insulted, really, his ex-wife, who he walked out on 5 years earlier for another woman, and get this, I called, insulted his dog, which, by the way, was a bit disturbing. He eventually, Jesus Christ, why do people just can't write with it down? Which, by the way, was a bit disturbed, and he had to rehome it. Good Lord, it's like, people, please proofread what you post before you post it. Please, I beg you. I know I'm not like the pinnacle of English literature here, but just put a little effort into it, okay? Good Lord. She establishes that she was doing her son a favor at the time, and that he had no place being insulted by anything she said about his ex-wife, and that his dog whom she called a lunatic, badly behaved dog, deserved the insult. Okay, so that's what the insult would mean. Okay, he was redacting the insults. What's missing is the context of the insults. Whether her son has had trouble in the past with her bad-mouthing people and things he cares for, whether her insults were veiled criticisms of him, whether the insults she quoted were two in a vacation-long stream of insults and he was tired of her insulting everything and anyone, or everyone, whether this was the straw that broke the camel's back. One allegation out of context shaves down to, oh god, it's Latin. I'm not going to try that. Reducto ad absurdum. Okay, I butchered that horribly. I'm not a Latin speaker. I apologize. So again, I've seen individuals like that. They complain about everything under the sun. That's never good enough. And then eventually you're just like, shut up. Just shut up. I've had your crap for too long. I've had enough. Go away. And that's probably what this woman is she's just a constant complainer, and he finally just said, I've had enough. I get it. I completely get it. So, why do they do it? We all know why. Let's not beat around the bush, but this isn't for us. This is for them. So their children's words can't reflect badly on them is the obvious reason. Members who have aired their children's grievances outside the endlessly enabling warmth of estranged parents' forums have been stung by people who took their children's sides, and they've learned not to give their opponents ammunition. And that's really what it boils down to, is these people can't handle criticism, therefore they're going to take any possible criticism out of the equation. They have to be the hero in their story. Damn the consequences, damn everything else. And they're lying to themselves and others just for that instant feedback. But it runs deeper than that. Many members truly can't remember what their children said. That's fair too. Anything tinged with negative emotion, anything that makes them feel bad about themselves, shocks them so deeply that they block it out. Yeah, I can see that. I can definitely see that. They really can't remember anything but screaming. Because again, it's just noise. They can't handle what's being tossed at them. They just see this. That's all they see. I know, that's annoying. Thank you. The emotional amnesia shapes their entire lives, pushing them to associate only with people who won't criticize them, training their families to shelter them from blows so thoroughly that the softest protest feels like a fist to the face. Yeah. But it runs even deeper than that. Posts in estranged parents' forums are vague. Yes, they are very vague. And again, that's how they rationalize it, is the vagueness. Members recount stories with the fewest possible details, the least possible context. They don't recreate entire scenes, repeat entire conversations, give entire text exchange. They paraphrase hours of conversations away. Yes, it is just that one instance that occurs in a vacuum. They're so focused on this one little thing, they ignore the planet-sized life that occurred. The only element they describe in detail is their own grief or rage. Nor do the other members press them for more information because they know that it'll come back on them. They know this. Compare this with the forums for adult children of abusers, where the members not only cut and paste email exchanges into their posts, they take photos of handwritten letters, screenshot text conversations. And this is true. They show everything. They recreate scenes and details, and if the details don't add up, the other members question them about it. This is also true. I don't remember which Reddit it is. I think it's like Estranged Children or something like that. They're very good at that. And I might post the subreddit down there in the description. We'll see. They get annoyed when a member's paraphrasing changes the meaning of a sentence, or when omitted details change the meaning of a meeting. They care about precision, context, and history because they know that those people are fair. They're fair-minded. That's why they don't want that toxicity in their life. And they don't tolerate those who are toxic at all. You know, that's the important part here. Is toxicity comes in many forms, and it needs to be rooted out as much as possible. The difference isn't a matter of style, it's a split between the two ways of perceiving the world. In one worldview, emotion is king. Details exist to support emotion. If a member gives one set of details to describe how angry she is about a past event, and a few days later gives a contradictory set of details to describe how sad she is about the same event, both versions are legitimate because both emotions are legitimate. Yes, and that's a problem. You know, the adults, they can't handle, when I say adults, I mean the parents. They can't handle the fact that they're wrong, you know, and by supporting other people, they themselves are being validated for the same toxicity. The children, again, they want to know every single detail, every single aspect of the situation. Otherwise, they kind of smell a rat, if that makes sense. You know, let me munch on that statement for a little bit because I want to elaborate on it, but the words are not coming to my mind right now. Context is malleable because the full picture may not support the member's emotions. If a member adds detail that undermines her emotion, the other member considerably, the other members considerably, I don't know why I can't read that word. The other members ignore them. We'll just go with that. Sorry, for some reason I'm struggling with that word. For example, one woman posts that she felt wounded and betrayed because a few days beforehand, her daughter had agreed to let the mother and one of the mother's friends drop by the house to visit. On the day of the visit, the daughter said she wasn't up for a visit. She had gone to the doctor so the doctor could examine her incision for infection. She had gotten the incision 2 weeks earlier when she had a C-section while miscarrying a near-term baby the day before Christmas. Oh man, that's sad. The mother was broken because her daughter accused her of being selfish. The woman just had a C-section. What the heck? This is the kind of toxicity. Like, you got a woman just lost a child, had a C-section to remove said child, and may be getting sick from an infection, and the mother is hurt and accusing the daughter of being selfish. Good criminy. The members all agree that the daughter was the selfish one, that she had no right to speak to her mother like that, and that she should be more supportive of her mother and her mother's grief for the lost grandchild. And then you wonder why your child cuts you off. That's all I'm saying. That's all I'm saying, is you wonder why, and you have a story like that. Any sane person, I hope, let me caveat that, because not every sane person is sane 100% of the time. But I hope any sane person can understand that when you have a freaking infection of an open wound, that kind of takes a little priority over your own mother. Good Lord, that is just aggravating. Emotions create reality. In the second worldview, reality creates emotion. Members want the full picture so they can decide whether the poster's emotions are justified. Small details can change the entire tenor of the form's response. Members see a distinction between "she said I'm worthless" and "she said something that made me feel worthless." Yes. Members recognize that unjustified emotions, like supersensitivity due to trauma or irration. Oh, God, why can't I not pronounce these words today? Irritation. Oh, irritation. God, I'm sorry. Sometimes I get a little dyslexic when reading certain words. Irritation with another person that colors the view of everything the person does are real and deserve respect. But they also believe that unjustified emotions shouldn't be acted on. They show posters different ways to view the situation and give advice on how to handle that emotion. The emotions, pardon me. In short, they believe that external events create emotional responses, that only some responses are justified, that people's initial perceptions of events are often flawed, and that understanding external events can help people understand and manage emotions. I agree there. I was once told by a counselor that, and this kind of put a lot into perspective when I was told this, and I was told at a younger age that being angry is a choice. You make a choice to be angry at that moment, and you can choose not to be angry. Everyone says that anger is an emotion. No, anger is a choice. Everything else can be an emotion, like love's an emotion, happiness is an emotion, but anger is a choice. And I would argue that all emotions are a choice. It's the difference between, the human part of us versus the animal part of our brains. You can be mad that you didn't get a promotion, or you can say, okay, well, I'll try again next time. You can be mad that some dude cut you off on the highway, or you can say, well, hopefully he has a better day, and just move on with your life. But just remember that all emotions, and this is me saying this, I'm not an expert, but all emotions are a choice. And being devoid of emotion can also be a choice if you really want to go deep into it. The first viewpoint, emotion creates reality, is true for a great many people. Not a healthy truth, not a truth that promotes good relationships, but a deep lived truth nonetheless. It's seductive. It means that whatever you're feeling is just and right, and you're never in the wrong unless you feel you're in the wrong. Oh God, that freaking hits many points. Yes, you can't deal with someone who thinks that they're in the right all the time. And that's, again, where a lot of toxicity is. When you're right all the time, everybody else is wrong, and not a lot of people want to be wrong all the time. For people whose self-image is so battered and fragile that they can't bear anything but validation, it often it feels like the only way they can face the world. I agree there. My mother has to be right 100% of the time, and that's the reason why I don't talk to her, is because I can't handle that. Being wrong all the time, dealing with her all the time. No, I'm good. Okay, so let's continue on here. I was just curious because it's been a long time since I read this. I wasn't sure how long this is. We're already at 33 minutes. Okay, so what can be done about it? Well, he's right. Nothing. There is nothing that can be done about parental alienation or adult-child alienation. They're not going to change. You're not going to change. They expect you to change. And unless you want to change and deal with their... No, I would never ask you to do that, and I don't think you should. You are your own person, and you deserve to be validated just as much as they do. There's nothing you can do about these people. There's nothing you can do about a parent that has basically just dragged you into their toxicity. You can't deal with it. You can, of course, go to therapy or talk about it with others, but at the end of the day, they're going to be that person. And if you can't handle that, then you have no choice. You got to get rid of that. Get rid of the cancer. You know, to save the body, sometimes you have to cut off a limb or an organ. And that's what you got to do. And it's sad. It's very sad all the time, but you have to do it for your sanity, for those around you as well. You know. When denial runs that deep, when avoidance is that in ground, a person can't be separated from it any more than they can be separated from their bones. It's why I aim this site at estranged adult children and outsiders, because members of estranged parents' forms can't be helped. Their entire system of defense is designed to make them unsavable. Yes, I fully agree here. They can't be talked out of it. They have to have a certain view in order to understand what they've done. And if they're so up their own rears that they're looking at themselves at the back of the teeth, you can't pull their heads out of their rears. They have to want that. And even then, a lot of people are not willing to work on themselves. They just aren't. From my own experiences with a former friend who has had the same difficulty absorbing negative input, I can tell you that by framing criticism very, very carefully with lots of positive input and as little emotion as possible, you can coax someone to accept little slivers of negative feedback. But you have to explain it so gently that they don't understand how serious the situation is, and in a few weeks, they're back to their old selves. And that's, again, a problem. If you have to sugarcoat criticism, then what's the point? Because they're not going to get it. You know, when it comes to, like, for example, art school. I didn't go to art school. I will be the first to admit, but I've seen art critiques at an art school, and they are brutal. I mean, those people they say stuff, and the whole point of that kind of brutality is to make the artist better. I don't agree with the whole attacking a person for things they can't control. But that being stated, some people have to learn to accept what criticism is being offered, whether or not they agree with it. We can always improve. We can always change. It's a hard, long road. And I think that's what this is just some people just can't handle criticism, no matter how much you beat them over the head with it. They just can't handle it. Their psyche just, because, you know, when you're raised not being told no, and then you go out into the real world and you're told no, it is a shock. And again, I don't blame anybody. Let me put it that way. I don't blame anybody. I don't blame my mother for how she is. She is who she is, and I can't blame her for that. Your parents are who they are. You can't blame them for that. But what you can do is protect yourself. And that's really what estrangement is you're protecting yourself from dealing with these people. You know, again, sometimes in order to save the body, you have to cut the rot out. And that's what this is it's rot. Anyways, you can also train them by addressing each problem in the moment. As soon as they do something wrong, you can tell them that what they did and give them immediate consequences, like ending the visit. Each time you do it, they'll tantrum and spray abuse in all directions, but with repetition, they'll learn that doing things they like X causes things they hate Y. Maybe they'll stop doing X. Maybe they'll stop visiting and they'll tell the rest of the family how controlling and cruel you are. I've seen that before. Maybe your mental health will survive the tantrums and abuse and escalating tactics long enough for them to pick one or the other. It's like training a toddler, but without any hope that the toddler will grow out of it. Yeah, you can try that, but let's continue. I'll explain that here in a second. There's a reason the members of estranged parents' forms are estranged. If you're an estranged adult child and you're looking for a way to get your parents to hear what the problem is, I'm sorry, but you have your answer already. They don't want to know. They may be incapable of knowing. There are no magic words that will penetrate their defenses. The good news is that you're free. You can stop now. If you need permission, I'll give it to you. You are hereby allowed to stop trying to get through to your willfully deaf parents. Please stop. I like that little note from the writer there. And the rest of these are anecdotes. I'm not going to bore you with that. Anyways, so how do I want to explain this? The simple truth is as adults, we are set in our ways. Whether we want to sit there and say, "Oh no, we're flexible, we're open," no, we're pretty set in our ways as adults. And our parents, again, whether we like it, let me stop there. Assuming you have parents, because I know a lot of people don't have parents. The adults in our lives between the ages of birth to 12, well, throughout our entire lives, but around those ages, birth to 12, those adults are what shape us the most. Because that's all we know. We don't really know how things are outside of our house, out of our bubbles. And then as we get older, we start getting friends that we're hanging out with more. We start learning how other families do it. And at that point, we realize, well, something's not right here. That's when, when people talk about teenage rebellion, I think that's really what it boils down to, is they see a world outside of their own world. And that's where the whole concept, the grass is always greener on the other side, comes from. They want the other world out there. Which, that's fine, more power to them. But some parents, for some reason, the older the child gets, the more controlling they get. And I think what it boils down to is they can't handle, they feel that's like their last connection. For example, the popular example that I can think of is Gypsy Rose, the famous Munchausen by proxy case, where the mother, Dee Dee Blanchard, she was super, super controlling of that girl. To the point where she had, not Dee Dee, but Gypsy Rose had her boyfriend unalive her mother. I'm not saying what Gypsy Rose did was right, but I am sympathetic. I am empathetic. Let me rephrase that. I would never do that, but I've never been in a situation where I felt I had to do that. When she found out that her mother was lying about her for so long, I believe the girl was told that she was like 14 or something. She was actually 18. And she had like multiple unneeded surgical procedures done. That's not good. That's not healthy. You know, that girl is going to be scarred for the rest of her life, physically, mentally, and emotionally. I know that, like, God, this is such a heavy topic. A lot of adults out there treat their children like accessories versus people. And that's where a lot of the animosity from children comes from, is they don't feel like they're respected or loved. I mean, I've even seen and heard, you know, the whole I'm the adult and you're the child and you have to listen to me thing. Every child's different. I'm not going to sit there and say that like one parenting style fits all, but like I have a friend whose son is extremely autistic, and she has used that line on him, because to try to explain every little thing, his mind can't comprehend it, and you know, sometimes she has to have him just do things. So she has used that line. And initially, before my friend had her son, I firmly believe that you should always explain to a child what you're trying to do. And then after seeing the two of them together, I realized that sometimes you have to just sit there and say, I'm the adult. You have to do this. And now that the child is becoming a teenager, and he's going through adolescence, pardon me, he's now getting bigger, and he's already like 11, and he's taller than my friend. And she's terrified that he's going to hurt her. And I don't mean like he's going to unalive her. It's more he's going to have a meltdown, because again, the kid's super, super autistic. He's going to have a meltdown and she can't do anything about it. And I fully understand the fear there. I do believe that it's going to get to a point where, you know, when this kid eventually graduates, moves out, they're not going to talk to each other. I already see it. Maybe when he's older, he can appreciate it more because of, you know, but I don't think that that's going to happen. I think their relationship is essentially written in stone at this point. You know, at the end of the day, she has to parent him somehow, and if he's not willing to listen, he's not willing to do what he needs to do, she has to find ways to get him to do what he needs to do, and it's going to become an issue. So, I'm at 48 minutes, so I'm going to end here. If you're a child who's estranged from their parents, please comment. You know, let's talk about it. Let's have a discussion about it. Or you can send an email and tell your side of the story. If you're a parent whose adult children has estranged from you, let's talk about it. I'm interested to know what you feel the reasons are. I'm curious as to if this has woken you up or made you think in a different light. Anyways, please like, subscribe, share, do all that stuff. Yeah, that's it. My name is Jack Ducard, and this is Sentinel Circle. Thank you for being here today. I appreciate everything you guys are doing for us. Have a good day.